This is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. On this episode, Travis Reilly, the Director of Maintenance for Reilly Properties, joins us and talks to Mike about how to furnish a home and the process of transforming a long-term rental into a short-term rental. Stay tuned.
All right, good evening. It's cold winter's day here in the fall of Cleveland, and with me is Travis Reilly. I'm Mike Reilly, and Travis is a key person running our Airbnb operations. And this podcast episode is about what is the ABCs in running an Airbnb business, and is it something that you should do or you shouldn't do? Travis, you've been involved in the Airbnb setups for the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, at least good three or so years.
And let's start with the beginning, which is the decision to take a property that has been rented out for a year, and now we're converting it into an Airbnb, which means that instead of dealing with one tenant for 1 year, you're dealing with maybe upwards of 20 tenants over the course of the year, maybe twice a month. Sometimes you get somebody who goes for a month, extends for a couple weeks. Sometimes you'll get 3 people in 1 month. So let's just say over the course of one house, you maybe be getting 15 to 20 new tenants. But the first thing you got to do is you got to set up the house. You got to furnish the house.
Right.
So what's your approach to that?
Well, you always got to start with a work order, and doing this on my Google Sheets.
Well, what's a work order for those who, for these mom and pops out there is thinking of starting an Airbnb? They're already freaking out. Work order, what's that?
Well, I don't know. It's just, I guess, a fancy word for a plan, or
a blueprint,
or even a list. I mean, because when you're getting a house ready, it's different than staging it for real estate purposes, for showings or for pictures. You got to get the house ready for someone to live in, you know, and that a lot of people, at least the people that I've worked with, they can forget a lot of little details here and there that are important for someone to truly live there and feel comfortable.
Right.
So that's where I always start with just generating a list, starting with the bigger items, of course, like the beds and the furniture in the bedrooms and furniture in the living room and dining room. Those are kind of the key things that I start with, and get sizes of the rooms and draw diagrams and start to figure out, okay, what's the right size bed for this room? What kind of orientation do we want to set up the living room, just to make it look nice and be efficient in a way. And so once I kind of start with those key points, then I start kind of going into the budget aspect where...
Now, let me hold you there. Like the budget, you've done probably at least a dozen homes.
Yeah.
Furnishing over the last 2-3 years as we've converted them. And for those out there, conventional, let's take a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house. Maybe total square feet of about 1,600, 1,700, 15 to 1,700 square feet. We're not talking about a mansion. We're talking about your basic 3-bedroom house. What would be your money budget for that?
Usually around $5,000
to get it all.
To get it all from A to Z is usually where we hit our mark.
Okay, now you started with the big items, and it's what is interesting is how this has evolved over these 12 plus houses. You're starting out with, you've discovered that, I'm going to get my beds where?
Right. Yeah, I mean, over the years, you refine your process on where you source the items that you need. So, we've worked in the past with depots on buying the mattresses, but now I've switched to Amazon because the mattresses you buy can be the ones that are all kind of pre-packaged and rolled up, and that's a lot more easier for my crew to move, to transport, and to get things set up.
Okay, so you're going with Amazon on the mattresses. Now, what about like the couches, the lamps, the end tables, the dining room table, the kitchen table? Where are you going for that?
Well, here in Cleveland, there are two places that I go to. The Habitat Restore. That's
the Habitat for Humanity Restore,
right? Right. Kind of on the west side of Cleveland. And that is where I get my dressers, my end tables, my lamps. Because, I mean, they're not going to be brand new pieces of furniture you'd buy on Wayfair. You'd obviously get them at a much lower cost. But that kind of furniture, you can actually have a good selection of pretty decent furniture there.
Right.
But for higher, more frequently used, or things like couches and stuff, I like to go to Cleveland Furniture Bank, which is kind of in the same similar location. They have a little bit of a nicer quality. They have staff that, you know, go through the couch more thoroughly to clean it and stuff like that, and so.
Right, and so for those who don't live in Cleveland, they should first get themselves up to speed about where the resale stores are. There's probably a Habitat for Humanity stores in their area. There may be, I mean, there's a lot of places where...
Yeah, like thrift stores, consignment stores, you know, sometimes estate sales, you know, you can really be resourceful as to where
but
you
here's
pick out
the
this
tricky
stuff.
part, because you want to be able, you're not going to want to spend 3 months getting this, you know, furnished. You got to turn this around. If you make the decision to furnish the house, your window is probably 2 weeks to turn this around.
Well, I've had cases where it's been 1 day, 24 hours to get it set up, to a week, to, you know, it's, we make it work here sometimes where we gotta...
but doing this over and over again, knowing where your supply stores are, that's important. So
yeah.
So you're going to the Habitat and the thrift store, you know, in Cleveland. Amazon. So keep going. What are your other sources?
Well, the other thing I guess that I just thought of too when you were saying that is over the years as well, I've learned that some kind of furniture is more important than others in a way. Like, beds are probably the most important because they'll sleep on them. So you wanna invest a little more money on the bed size. You don't want to go to some place down the street for a mattress that's been used.
That's very important with the whole rise of bed bugs and.
But for end tables, you don't need to spend $100 on a fancy end table. I mean,
you can get one for like $10.
You can get one for $10 at Habitat, and it still might be just as nice and maybe even a little more interesting. But you kind of, as you do this more, you realize, okay, what are the big pieces of, what are the furniture that you need to invest a little bit more for practicality's sake versus, you know, what can you kind of get on the cheap.
Right.
But not sacrifice quality,
now,
I guess.
One of the things that you've discovered has been these mattress covers and chair covers, right? So you're getting the mattress, but you want to make sure that mattress that's one of the key components on a furnished house. You discovered the whole importance of those mattress covers.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to not buy another brand new mattress or another brand new couch. You know, you can, in a way, in the long term, you can spend a little bit more on a chair cover or an armchair cover or a mattress protector, but you'll get a lot more out of it, and in case some person rents it and they spill something,
Well,
that's
we've had people,
more of a
one of the
insurance.
clients that we've had coming in a lot is people coming in on medical. They're here at the clinic for 2-3 weeks for a month.
Right.
And, we just had one person who had the blood spill. So,
Oof.
yeah, I just heard about that last week.
Yeah.
A little bleeding on the mattress. So having a mattress protector, very important.
Saves you a lot of money.
Right, exactly. Now, obviously, it's in their security deposit, but, they're going through enough, dealing with the health problem. You don't want to be whacking them, on their security. So, okay, so we've got the beds, we got the bed covers, we got the lamps, the end tables. Now you get into the whole kitchenware
And bathroom wear.
Bathroom wear. Where do you go for that?
I go to Walmart, but I also sometimes just go to the dollar stores. I mean, again, it's that whole process of, okay, what do you have to spend a little more money on versus what can you kind of get away with on the cheap.
Right.
And so that's where I've discovered Dollar Tree, where things are literally $1. You can buy pretty decent looking cups and plates, and
right.
I mean, that's literally $1, and if you buy the same set at Walmart, it's so much more. So,
and this is something we probably should have talked about at the beginning, but maybe it's a good segue here. When you're furnishing a house, let's say it's a 3-bedroom, nice middle-class neighborhood. We're in Cleveland Heights. You've got different neighborhoods, different price points. You got Shaker Heights. We've got a couple properties there. We've got a really nice duplex, a first floor, second floor. They're each 2 bedrooms. And then we have a couple properties that are more, there's a lot of duplexes there. And so when you're looking at the house, you've got to determine, well, who is the type of person that's going to rent from that?
Right.
Okay,
Who do we want our customers to be?
Right. Now, in some of the Cleveland Heights areas and 3-bedroom and in Shaker, the nicer 3-4-bedroom homes, we're getting nicer stuff, right? But then we have a whole client list of people that are construction workers. Because one of the fascinating things about Airbnb is you're getting a lot of different people, all walks of life, who are looking for a house versus staying at a hotel. So you may have a house that's geared for construction workers. I mean, we have a couple film crews that are renting from us now for a movie shoot. And, these are the people that do the lighting, the cooking, stuff like. We're not talking movie stars here.
Yeah, they just need a place to crash.
But a nice, again, the beds are the key, because the beds have to be nice, comfortable. Things got to look clean. We're not putting a card table up in the dining room. But then again, we're not charging as much as we would charge for a house in Shaker, or 4 bedrooms, which is a little more professional.
Well, but still, it all goes back to the point where you have to be strategic on where you invest your money in the pieces of furniture or furnishings that you buy. Because, correct, like you're saying, Mike, where at our nicer Shaker homes, I would invest in a nicer couch.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you still can get, you can still get cooking utensils at the dollar store for the Shaker place. They won't notice. You don't need crystal stemware for that place too.
Exactly.
So you really slowly over the years refine, okay, what can you get away with price-wise without sacrificing quality?
Right. And we want something that's going to be nice. We obviously want a good review in Airbnb. You're gunning to be a super host and all that. But one of the things I've noticed with some of our clients that we manage their property and we stage their property for, like we have a property that just came up that's on the lake, and the client lives in Hawaii, and they come back in the summer, but they don't want to sell the house. They want to rent the house out. It's an income producing. It's a beautiful house. But in talking to the client, we had to keep telling her that, listen, nobody knows who you are. You know what? You don't have to make this like Laura Ashley house, or
You mean like Home Magazine
exactly.
cover, Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart,
right.
And you know what? And she was like, well, people, they want these special soaps, or
right.
they, and these baskets. They don't want that. They want, they don't really care about that. The price is important. You're always competing with the hotel. And so, if they've got 4 people, 5 people coming in, and they need a place for a week, well, think about it. They're going to get 2 rooms at a hotel, and that's at least $300 a night for 2 rooms. Now, if you're at $250 a night, they'd rather have a house with a nice kitchen, and they'll pay that 1 week at $250 for it. But again, you don't have to over Martha Stewart eyes this house.
Well, especially if you're trying to start a business like we are, that will be a pitfall for you if you're stuck in that Martha Stewart, everything needs to be, super expensive and lavish and stuff like that. I mean, I've stayed at Airbnbs where they are just like that, the Martha Stewart living, the Better Homes and Gardens magazine covers or whatever, but they live at that home.
Right.
They're getting some gain out of it too. When you're renting homes and you're flipping them and then you're putting them on this kind of market, you really need to actually be careful about thinking like that, because economically it could hurt you.
Right. So let's say for our people out there who's got that 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, depending on where you are, we're not talking L.A. or New York, Manhattan. But, usually in the middle, a Cleveland, a Columbus, an Ann Arbor, Indianapolis, kind of the Midwest, even down in Florida. If you rented those houses out for the year, you'd probably rent in a 3-bedroom for around anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Now, with an Airbnb, you're not going to get 100% vacancy. You've got labor involved in the cleaning. You got costs getting it set up of $4,000 to $5,000. So right away, I mean, you've got to have you got to make more than $1,200, $1,500 a month to make this thing viable.
Yeah.
So I tell people, you've got to figure on a 75% vacancy. You got to figure these additional costs with furnishing. You're going to have a very reliable handyman, a very reliable cleaning person. So, your upfront costs will probably be $5,000 to get it furnished, and furnished nicely, not over the top,
right.
Which means you better make more than $20,000 for because you're already making $15,000 on a 1-year unfurnished a year, and now you've got to make somewhere at least $20,000 to make this thing fly. And that is where we get into the pricing, which is in our next episode. We talk about pricing, we talk about marketing. But again, the furnishing is going to be that initial upfront cost. And then we get into the cleaning, which your group also works with. You get a quick turnaround, somebody's coming in the next day. It's like a hotel business.
Yeah.
And you have to have a reliable cleaning person.
Right.
So talk about that a little.
Well, I try and opt for being a little more on the careful side when it comes to cleaning, because you just want to make sure you cover all your bases with a room. So we always try and thoroughly inspect every room and at least give things a wipe down, just to be on the safe side. But
one thing that we ran into, now that we're getting into the middle of November here, we discovered when the weather started changing in late October, we had a couple cold nights. All of a sudden, we realized, wait a minute, the furnace is not working. So, when that cleaning person comes in, that cleaning person has to be aware of a couple things other than cleaning. Is the furnace working? Number one. Is there a leaky toilet? Very, very important. Leaky toilet means big water bills. Is there windows that were left open? Is the fireplace covered? Or is that, because a fireplace with the damper not closed and a screen or a glass thing over in front of it, that's like having an open window. Also, the cleaning is going to reveal mold, which you got to be careful about. Are we having any leaks in the basement? So your cleaning person has got to be working with somebody else who's going to be doing an inspection for the handyman stuff, as well as the cleaning. And then, of course, you got to look at resupplying toilet paper. Again, folks, your Airbnb is like you're running your own little hotel. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. You got more labor, you've got more expense than you're doing a 1 year, which means your pricing of that Airbnb has got to generate revenues to really make this fly close to $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you better be making, instead of $1,500 a month, you better be making $3,000 a month in terms of your pricing, because you're not going to have a couple of every day is not going to be occupied. So just wrapping this up on the furnishing and cleaning, any final thoughts on what you've gone through in the last couple months as you've with the cleaning and the follow-up stuff?
Yeah, I think it's just when you get into this kind of business, like I said before, you initially think you have to do it the Martha Stewart superhost route, but I've learned that you have to kind of slap your wrist in a way and force yourself not to get too deep into the weeds of, making it a perfectly lavish house. You want to be strategic about what kind of furniture and furnishings you buy, where to invest your capital spending in those categories. And at the end of the day, you want to make it as more of a functional house as possible.
Right.
That's all that these people really want. They just want a functioning place to stay and feel comfortable.
Right, and it's been our experience as we've gotten more and more into the short-term rental. An Airbnb is not our only vehicle for short-term rentals. I mean, people find us on VRBO. They find us on, Craigslist, our own kind of marketing, in-house marketing through Google searches. We deal with construction companies, insurance companies looking for relocation, corporate relocations. So there's a wide variety. It's not just Airbnb. We're kind of using Airbnb as a catch-all phrase, like, calling the copier the Xerox. I mean, that's what, Airbnb's kind of owning that brand, kind of like Uber. People think about Uber. They don't necessarily think about Lyft. But be that as it may, I think one thing we've also realized is the difference between that person that's there for a year or two versus those 15 to 20 people renting. The irony of it is a lot of times the house actually does not get worn down with an Airbnb setup versus the 1 year. Because these people that are renting an Airbnb, for the most part, they're pretty professional. You're not dealing with a family coming in with 3 kids and a dog, 2 dogs, and then at the end of the 1 year, 2 year lease, I mean, the place is just a bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, it versus the professional person who really is looking for a place to sleep.
Right.
Or if they're going to be there, they're only going to be there for a week. Now, I'm not saying everybody that we've rented has been, perfect.
Right.
But for the most part, they're a lot easier on the house than the conventional 1 year. So if people are thinking, oh my God, there's a lot more involved in this than maybe I don't want to do. Maybe I don't want to do Airbnb style renting. I think on balance, this is a better way to go with your investment property. And then, of course, there's a spill-off because you can then use your own property when you have guests coming in. You know, you got the in-laws coming in. You can just say, hey, well, stay here.
Right.
Stay at our house. I've done that. I just make sure I want them to do the laundry when they're done. That's all I ask them to do. Maybe leave a bottle of wine. So, okay, well, thanks, Travis. And we're going to do a follow-up episode on the marketing and pricing side. We'll get down a little bit more down and dirty on the numbers about what we think you should charge in relation to how much the house costs.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. If you haven't already, go back to our first installation of To Airbnb or Not to Be, which features Brooke Reilly, foreman at Reilly Painting and Contracting, who details all of the work that has to take place before the home can be furnished. All episodes can be found at www.reilly-properties.com or find our episodes on streaming services like Spotify, Overcast, and SoundCloud.